So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, how the top 10 is shaping up, and, who you think is most likely going to end up as a blue bagger, and then kind of who is it that you're hoping maybe slides through, or who's the guy you've got your eye on?
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, I've tried to put together like mock drafts, phantom drafts, whatever you want to call them, trying to see like what other teams above us kind of need to see how it will all float. And like it's going to be interesting. There's definitely a few teams that it's going to be a weird one to see who they take. Like Essendon could go anywhere. Same for Gold Coast. Same, and then from that follow-on effect, that's where it can really change. Like West Coast and St Kilda's pick before us, you just don't know who these clubs are going to select if someone takes someone that they're maybe not expecting. But probably like to start off with, really the main player that I think most Carlton supporters have been eyeing off is, and let me get this up. If you're on YouTube, I'm getting some graphics up here.
Oh, here we go.
It is Oliver Hollands, who is 184 centimeters. He's a midfielder, plays a bit of wing as well, from the Murray Bush Rangers. His real sort of draft range is probably around that sort of 10 to 20. And he's someone that I think a lot have spoken about. I think if you're looking at Carlton's needs, we're needing that pace. We're needing a winger, someone that can be that outside run. If you're looking at our midfield currently, we've probably got those inside players. It's now looking for that outside. And look, Oliver Hollands, he's the best two-way runner in the draft. He won the 2K time trial at the Combine. His endurance just allows him to cover the ground, whether he sort of pushes forward with the ball in hand to set up the play on the outside, or whether that's to drop back in defense to cover, which is really that profile of the elite wingman in the AFL these days. He's really high pressure. He loves to chase, loves to tackle. And he is really good on the outside when he plays that wing role, but at times he has shown that he can go in and win his own football and be that spark kind of. And I hate comparisons. I'm really just going to do it for more maybe Carlton players, not as he is this player, but there's an element of him in that kind of like Zach Fisher mold where it goes in for a burst and hopefully produces something on the outside. That's what we've seen him do. And like if you're saying his downsides, he can lack a bit of physicality and some strength, and his inside contested ball isn't amazing, but compared maybe to a Lockie O'Brien, his contested ball winning is better, and he definitely has that physicality in wanting to do it. It's just probably at times his body isn't there. So I think as far as that outside midfielder is probably the best that should be available at our selection. I don't think anyone will take him higher than our draft pick.
Very interesting. Yeah, well, I guess that makes sense. It's what we need from a player like this, where you could argue that we're not in dire need for a contested kind of guy. So if that's where his deficiencies are, then it sounds like a winner. So you feel like there's a fair chance that he'll still be there for us.
Yeah, really, as far as like things I've tried to read up and see what the experts out there are predicting who will select who, I think that there's enough talent above that teams are probably either looking for key position players or real inside midfielders, or midfielders can do a bit of both. I just don't think their need is there for really anyone for a Hollands, and I think it's probably us or doggies that probably take him.
Love it. What else have you got?
So the next guy is someone that I feel like every mock draft I've seen has had us taking him, and I don't feel like it's the greatest need, but the guy to talk about is JEDD BUSSLINGER. He is 196 centimeters. He's a key defender from East Perth. Draft range around that sort of 5 to 15. Potentially quite linked with a West Coast to have a couple picks before us. And the big thing is, look, he's the best key defender in this draft. He reads the play incredibly well. He is that outstanding intercept defender. It's always composed as well when he's got the ball in hand. He makes pretty good decisions when he has it. He seems to know his limitations and know when to take the game on, know when to just take that simple option. He can lack a little bit in size, not height, but, bit of that muscle. And sometimes strength can be a bit of his weakness. But I think, once he just develops that, he's a young kid. These guys can take a bit of time to fill out. And I think that's with him. Once he's got that, he can play with a bit more strength and maybe not get as outbodied at times on these bigger, mature players he'll cop in the AFL. But look,
Yeah.
his one-on-one work isn't bad by any stretch, and he's able to compete well, I think, with those mature players. But he's just really skinny, so that's probably one of his few drawbacks. And the other thing maybe is that he did miss the end of the year. He had some shoulder niggles throughout the year, and eventually they just said, look, you've shown enough. You're going to go high in the draft.
Yeah.
Go in for shoulder surgery. So that's maybe, I know we love our injured defenders in particular, but I don't think it should be anything to hopefully worry about. And as far as his defensive craft, as I said, he's definitely the best defender in this draft class. So if we're looking to bolster that, I know a lot of outsiders think that that's a big weakness for us. I think JEDD BUSSLINGER is that pick if he's available.
So you mentioned that a lot of mock drafts that you've seen have us taking him. Do you think that's just based on that difference in what people perceive our needs to be? Or just kind of, do you think other people think of it less as a needs basis and more just on the quality of the talent?
It's probably a little bit of both, but probably leaning a little bit more towards need. They sort of saw our injuries last season, and probably a fair few don't maybe see Lewis Young as being that nailed on other defender. And if you're looking at talent to pair up Wiedering with a BUSSLINGER, I think that's a perfect partnership. Would work really well, and you're really shoring up that spine. So I do understand that, look, if he does fall to us, if, St Kilda don't want that other key defender, if West Coast don't take the local boy, then he should be available at our pick. And does Nick Austin maybe go a little bit more best talent rather than 100% need and just really show up that position and maybe look ahead and think, look, we've got Marchbank that we're hoping's going to be that player, but he's had some injuries. McGovern, same kind of thing, and just go, just get him in. And if he becomes that superstar, you can trade or you can find value elsewhere. So I think for that instance, it does make sense of it is still not 100% nailed down position, whether that be that third tall or even maybe that 100% second tall. And then, he's available there. To be interesting to see what we do on draft night. Those two, him and Hollands, are the two. I think I'm leaning a bit more towards Hollands because I think we're just a little bit more desperate for that outside pace rather than just another key defender when depth-wise, we do have a fair few. But I guess it's the question of, do you have, top 10 player on your list currently?
Totally. Yeah. No, I love that. Do you have some other guys that you think are first round options?
Look, definitely got a couple. I think as far as maybe a couple that may slide to us, if other teams maybe don't select them. The first one that excites me, you may have heard his name. It's Bailey Humphrey. He's 185 centimeters, mid forward from Gippsland Power. Range again, that sort of 5 to 10, but he could go earlier, to be honest. He's a bit of a bolter, as they like to say. He missed a bit of footy sort of at the start of the year, and then his second half was just unbelievable what he was able to do. And you look at teams, and Essendon been linked, Gold Coast has been linked. It wouldn't surprise me if anyone above us has a selection take him, just because look, he's a ball winning midfielder first and foremost, so maybe doesn't suit that need as much, but he's really powerful in the contest, and he sort of explodes away from stoppages, which maybe that's something we need. But then it's his forward craft that's that really exciting thing. He goes forwards, he kicks goals, kicked 21 goals in 11 NAB League games with 3 4-goal hauls. He's strong in the air, seems to always find the ball inside 50. He's one of those real X-factor players where whenever the ball goes in, he seems to be around it and getting chances at goals. He can be wasteful at times. I don't think he's always super composed inside 50. He can miss a fair few chances, which if anyone saw the last under-18 championship game, he did blaze away and miss a fair few, which has been a bit of a tale with him this year, but he just gets so many opportunities. And because he's of ability to not only be in the midfield and dominate, but then go forward and dominate, he can take marks. He just has that game-winning ability, and it's probably a component that we maybe don't have, that speed, explosiveness, can go forward and kick goals that if you want just game-winning players that maybe can play a bit of that half-forward role, can play in the midfield, can just sit in the forward line. He can sort of do everything. And as far as talent, like I rate him higher than a Hollands. I rate him higher than a Busslinger, even though he's a different position. If he slides to us, he's not maybe as much of a need as the other two, but talent-wise, I think he'd be so hard to pass up on.
So damn juicy. And he is one that has made his way into my my social media viewing. He's popped up with some highlights, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, there's something there. So that'd be exciting.
Yeah, and he definitely could slide to us. He's someone that at the moment, I would say 90% chance he's nowhere near us and our selection. But you just never know on draft night whether someone else slides and that changes all the picks. And probably the other one that is in this boat too, I am so high on this guy. Like I'll try and get my rankings up so I can tell you exactly where he's ranked currently. Bear with me while I go through about 7 different spreadsheets, but he's currently my 4th ranked player. A lot of people have him more towards that 9 and 10. So I'm maybe a bit higher on him than others, but it is MATTAES PHILLIPOU. He is from South Australia. He is 190 centimeter mid forward. So a little bit similar to that sort of Bailey Humphrey from Woodville, West Torrens. Draft range is that sort of 5 to 15. And look, there's a chance he could slide to us. And look, he's a big-bodied midfielder. As I said, 190 centimeters. He wins his footy on the inside. But what excites me is his ability to go forward, maybe like a Humphrey, where he can use his height, use that athleticism to have an impact on the scoreboard. He's just so incredibly clean, silky around the contest. Like some of his pickups off the ground under pressure have just been immaculate. They're so silky. It excites me. And like particularly there was one, I think it was against the Allies in the under-18 champs where ball was like on the ground to be won in a contest, sprints in, picks it up, spins out of the contest, puts it on the boot, kicks a goal literally out of nothing. And I think that's why I'm excited about him, because he's got that spark that it's that match winning ability that he can make something completely out of nothing. And he's that, I hate to say it, but like comparisons are made to like that Bontempelli where he can play mid, go forward, and has a bit more height than a Bailey Humphrey, maybe a bit more in that Cripps mold. And like he has been a little bit, I wouldn't say inconsistent, but I think why he's maybe lower on other people's draft boards is that maybe he's had some games where he's been outstanding, and then he's had some other games where he's been fine. And so maybe that consistency to a degree hasn't been there. But like he's strong in the contest, is that he wins his own football, but the ability to play dual position, I think, is an exciting prospect. And I just see him as that match winner, and that's why I rate him higher. You look at some of the other midfielders that are just inside or just outside, maybe ranked higher above him. While they're good and they're going to be good footballers, I think this guy has that potential to win you a grand final because of that X factor about him. And that's why I think that if he does fall to us, maybe he's less of a need than a Bailey Humphrey. But do you pass up on a guy that could just win you a game of football on his own genuine ability?
It's a good sell. I think match winner and X factor are words that we've been throwing around since we started this podcast. There's like, where do we find those guys? And I'm curious to hear why you are not, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but why are you against people comparing potential draftees to kind of current players?
It's just a really difficult thing because no player is like exactly like someone. And I feel like particularly in the media and fans, we tend to just go, oh, he's a clone of this player. This is exactly what we're getting, when the comparisons are more like there's a facet of his game that is similar to this. And I just think that comparisons can sometimes be pretty dangerous. And being fortunate to chat to a couple of people a bit more in the industry at times, they've just like some advice they've gotten from higher ups is just like, don't make comparisons. It just isn't the best thing to do. Like, I think that's why. But as far as like a midfielder that can burst, can kind of has that clean skills and can go forward, it's that Bontempelli mold. Whether he gets to those heights, who knows? But I guess for a bit of a slight comparison. That's kind of why he's got those plaudits. And hearing this guy speak, and from everything the media have kind of said in interviews and whatnot, he's apparently he's maybe rubbed teams a little bit the wrong way with his confidence. Some people maybe see it as a bit of arrogance, but like, he got asked the question, like, are you the best player in the draft? Like, would you go pick one? And he's like, hell yeah. Like, I'm the best. And some people maybe don't like that, but having heard him speak, Pommy actually had an interview with him the other day. So check that out, Pommy, and I was on YouTube. He has that confidence, but it doesn't seem like just dumb arrogance. It seems like he just believes in himself and wants to get the best out of himself. And like, why would he not think that he could be the best player? He wants to live up to that potential. And that's kind of how I see it. It's kind of that real competitiveness, I guess, in him. Yeah,
totally. No, I love that. I think, you pick your times when to be modest and when to, talk yourself up. But that sounds like the context where you want someone to be saying that they're the best. So I don't hold that against him at all. That's an exciting one.
And it's probably been something that we've spoken about Carlton, is we want guys that take things on, take the moment, want to be that guy that wins games. And if that's a quality you're after, I think MATTAES definitely has that. Probably, look, the last player I have really in this mold, and again, it can depend if other players maybe slide, but I don't really have them there. This is definitely, if all the players are gone and maybe we do want to go down that key defender path, there's really only one other I would be selecting around this, and that is Lewis Hayes. He is 199 centimeters, is a key defender from Eastern Ranges. Little bit further down the pecking order. Draft range is a bit more that sort of 15 to 25. Could go a little bit higher depending on like positions and what teams kind of need. But he's definitely the second best like defender in this draft. He's pretty close to BUSSLINGER, to be honest. I've always rated him pretty highly because I've tried to, knowing I was going to do this video and podcast throughout the year, I was keeping up with all the rankings from anyone that would post them all across the internet, basically, and trying to compare that to how I was rating people throughout the year. And I was higher on him throughout the year, and slowly he's moved his way up to where I had him. So that's kind of a bit of acknowledgement for me. It made me feel good about my rankings, but like, he's a really good distributor, and probably out of all the defenders, I think he uses it better than a BUSSLINGER. Like, really good kick, really good decision maker. He's good at intercepting. He's good one-on-one. It's probably the defensive and the best of his game. I think that BUSSLINGER has that. But the distribution is probably where I see Lewis Hayes being a bit better. He's really dominated whenever the ball's been back there. I don't have many like issues with him. Again, you'd probably say strength is something. But again, these young defenders, they don't have those bigger bodies yet. And that's really the only thing. But at 199 centimeters, you'd think that he'd be able to put that sort of weight on. But if we're after another defender and maybe BUSSLINGER's gone and we're desperate for that position, Lewis Hayes is really the obvious choice, but it might be that tiny bit of a reach of a pick.